English Bridge Podcast.
From your favorite healing space.
Here's what nobody tells you about falling behind. The person you're comparing yourself to is also comparing themselves to someone else. Everyone feels like they're losing a race that doesn't actually exist.
And the worst part? The finish line keeps moving. You hit one goal and suddenly there's a new standard you're supposed to meet. It's exhausting.
That's because we've confused progress with performance, and that confusion is quietly destroying people who are actually doing just fine.
Welcome back to English Bridge. I'm Cheryl, and I spent 3 years teaching English in Asia, and I watched so many of my students torture themselves with this question. Am I falling behind?
And I'm Noah. I have a psychology degree, and when I was counseling, this was the #1 source of quiet despair I saw. People who were objectively successful but felt like they were failing.
And honestly, Noah, I felt it too. I'd see other teachers getting promoted or moving to better schools, and I'd think, what am I doing wrong? Why am I still here?
That's the trap, Cheryl. Your brain isn't wired to see your own progress. It's wired to scan for threats. And in the modern world, the biggest threat feels like being left behind.
So today we're talking about that feeling, that sinking sense that everyone else has figured something out that you haven't, and why it's probably lying to you.
Because here's the framework we're working with. Comparison is a cognitive illusion. You're measuring your behind the scenes against everyone else's highlight reel, and that's not a fair contest.
Right, so we're not just going to tell you, stop comparing yourself. We're going to explain why your brain does it, what it costs you, and how to actually break the pattern.
We'll paint the feeling first, what this actually looks like in daily life. Then we'll dig into why it happens, share some real stories, and give you tools you can use this week.
Because if you've ever scrolled through social media and felt like you're the only one who hasn't gotten their life together, this episode is for you.
And if you've ever hit a goal and immediately felt like it wasn't enough, like you should already be further along, we're talking directly to you.
We want you to walk away understanding that progress isn't linear and falling behind is often just a story you're telling yourself.
So let's start by naming what this feeling actually looks like. Cheryl, let's paint the picture.
Let's do it, Noah, because I think a lot of people don't even realize they're stuck in this pattern until we describe it.
Scenario 1. You finally have a free evening. No meetings, no obligations. You sit down to relax, and your brain immediately opens 20 mental tabs. Did I reply to that email? Should I be learning a new skill right now?
Oh, I hate this one. You're physically resting, but mentally you're running a marathon. And then you feel guilty for not being productive, so you can't even enjoy the break.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. You start scrolling social media to distract yourself, and you see someone your age who just launched a business, or bought a house, or got promoted.
And then you start thinking, what have I even done this year? They're out there building empires, and I'm sitting on my couch in sweatpants.
So now you're not just tired, you're behind. And that free evening you were supposed to enjoy just became evidence that you're wasting your life.
It's like you can't win. Rest feels like falling behind, but you're too exhausted to actually do anything. So you just sit there feeling bad about yourself. Let me give you another one, Noah.
Scenario 2. You're technically off work, but you're never really off. You check your phone every 30 minutes. You think about Monday's meeting while you're trying to watch a movie.
I did this constantly when I was teaching. Sundays were supposed to be my day off, but I'd spend the whole day thinking about lesson plans. I was exhausted from things that hadn't even happened yet.
That's your nervous system in a state of chronic activation. Your body thinks it's always on call, so it never fully relaxes. You're running on fumes, but you can't figure out why.
And the worst part? You look around and everyone else seems fine. They're going to brunch, posting vacation photos, living their lives. Meanwhile, you're too anxious to leave your apartment.
So you think the problem is you. Everyone else can handle their responsibilities and still have fun. You must be doing something wrong.
It's so isolating, Noah. You feel like you're the only one who can't keep up. Which brings me to the next scenario, when you actually do have free time and it becomes a burden.
Scenario 3. You have a whole Saturday with nothing scheduled. Total freedom. And instead of feeling excited, you feel paralyzed. What should I do? What's the best use of this time?
Yes, I had a student in Shanghai who would spend hours planning the perfect day off, and then she'd be so exhausted from planning that she'd end up doing nothing.
That's the paradox of choice. Freedom requires decisions, and decisions require energy you don't have. So you freeze, and then you feel guilty for wasting the day.
And then you see someone post about their amazing weekend, hiking trip, dinner with friends, farmer's market, and you think, why can't I be like that? Why is being a person so hard for me?
Because you're comparing their curated output to your unfiltered internal experience. They're not showing you the 30 minutes they spent staring at their closet trying to decide what to wear.
Right, but in the moment, it just feels like proof that you're broken. Everyone else has energy and direction, and you're just stuck. Here's another layer to this, Noah.
Scenario 4. You spend your whole day managing other people's emotions. Smiling at your boss, being patient with difficult customers, reassuring your friend who's having a crisis.
Oh, this was huge for me teaching abroad. I'd spend 8 hours performing enthusiasm for my students, then go home and have nothing left for myself. I'd be too drained to even call my family.
That's emotional labor, and it's invisible work. Your prefrontal cortex is working overtime to regulate your responses, but nobody sees that effort. They just see you being nice.
Exactly. So when people ask why you're so tired, you don't even have a good answer. You didn't do anything physically hard. You just existed around other people all day.
And here's the thing, Cheryl. You're wearing a mask all day, and masks are heavy. By the time you take it off, you're too exhausted to remember who you actually are underneath it.
God, that's real. And then you scroll Instagram and see someone talking about self-care and boundary setting, and you think, I should be better at this. Which leads to the final scenario.
Scenario 5. You're scrolling your phone before bed. You see a former classmate who just published a book, a coworker who's traveling through Europe, someone younger than you who just made partner.
And you think, what am I even doing with my life? I wake up, go to work, come home, or repeat. Where's my book? Where's my promotion? Where's my proof that I'm not wasting my time on this planet?
And here's the trap. You're comparing your entire messy reality to their one polished moment. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, and that's not a fair fight.
But in that moment, it feels so real. It feels like everyone else is moving forward and you're just treading water. And the weight of that feeling, Noah, it's crushing. So why does this happen to us?
Let's start with the brain itself. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's energy, even though it's only 2% of your body weight, and a huge chunk of that energy goes to unfinished tasks.
Wait, so that half-written email I've been avoiding all week is actually louder in my brain than the 10 emails I already sent today?
Exactly. It's called the Zygarnik effect. Your brain holds onto incomplete tasks because evolutionarily, unfinished business was dangerous. An unfinished hunt meant no food. An unresolved conflict meant a threat.
So my brain is treating my unanswered text message like it's a saber-toothed tiger. That's why I can't relax even when I've done a ton of work, because my brain only cares about what's still open.
Right? And in the modern world, we have hundreds of open loops at any given time. Every notification, every pending decision, every I should probably do that is draining your mental battery.
Okay, that actually explains so much. But there's another layer here, right? It's not just tasks, it's the emotional work we do that nobody sees.
Absolutely. Emotional labor is the work of managing your feelings to meet social or professional requirements, smiling when you're frustrated, staying calm when you're overwhelmed, pretending to care when you're exhausted.
So like when a passenger is being difficult on a flight, and the flight attendant has to stay pleasant and helpful even though they probably want to say something very different?
That's one example. But it's also the colleague who nods sympathetically through your story, even though they have their own crisis. The parent who stays patient during the fourth meltdown of the day.
I felt this so much teaching abroad, Noah. I'd spend all day being encouraging and positive, and then I'd go home and just collapse. I had nothing left for my own life.
Because emotional regulation uses the same prefrontal cortex resources as decision-making and self-control. Every time you suppress a reaction or perform a feeling, you're spending energy from a limited tank.
And I'm guessing this hits differently depending on where you're from, right? Because some cultures expect way more emotional labor than others.
You're reading my mind, Cheryl. In collectivist cultures, a lot of Asia, parts of Latin America, the Middle East, there's a much higher expectation to maintain group harmony. Your feelings are secondary to the group's comfort.
But Noah, why does this seem like it's getting worse? I feel like my students in Shanghai were even more exhausted by this than my American students were.
Because you're layering modern comparison culture on top of traditional collectivist values. So you're already suppressing your needs for the group, and now you're also comparing yourself to a global highlight reel on social media.
Oh, wow. So you're exhausted not from what you did, but from what you didn't say. All the opinions you swallowed, all the times you smiled instead of objected?
Exactly. And that exhaustion is real, even though it's invisible. Your body doesn't distinguish between physical labor and emotional labor. It just knows the tank is empty.
Which brings us to another piece of this puzzle. All the tiny decisions we make every single day that we don't even notice.
Decision fatigue. The average person makes about 35,000 decisions a day. What to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first, whether to speak up in a meeting.
Okay, but give me a real example, Noah. What does decision fatigue actually look like in someone's life?
You come home after work. You've been making decisions all day. Now you sit down to watch something, and you spend 40 minutes scrolling Netflix, unable to pick. That's not laziness. That's a depleted decision-making system.
Oh, I've done that so many times. And then I feel bad for wasting my evening, which just makes me feel more behind. It's like a vicious cycle.
It is. And the cruelest part is that the people who seem like they have it all together aren't making fewer decisions. They've just automated more of them. Same breakfast every day. Same workout time. Fewer choices to preserve energy for what matters.
So when we look at someone and think they're ahead of us, we're not seeing all the invisible structure they built to protect their energy. We just see the output and assume they're naturally better at life than we are. I want to tell you about some real people, Noah, because I think stories make this hit differently.
I'm curious where you're going with this, Cheryl. Let me start with someone I worked with. Her name was Jessica, 29, marketing manager. She came to me because she felt like she was falling behind everyone in her cohort.
What was her daily life actually like?
She'd wake up, check Instagram before getting out of bed. First mistake. She'd see former classmates getting engaged, buying homes, getting promoted. Then she'd go to a job she was actually good at, but it never felt like enough.
But why didn't she just stop looking at social media? That seems like the obvious solution. What held her back from doing that?
Because the scrolling wasn't the problem. It was the symptom. She was looking for external validation to fill an internal void. She didn't believe her own progress was real unless someone else witnessed it.
That's heartbreaking. So even when she accomplished something, it didn't count in her own mind unless it measured up to what other people were doing.
Exactly. And here's what I told her. You're running a race where the finish line moves every time you get close. That's not a race you can win. You have to change the game entirely.
Did she? Did she actually change? That reminds me of someone I knew when I was teaching in Taiwan. Her name was Lynn, and she was completely stuck in this pattern too.
I'm curious. Tell me more about Lynn.
She was 32, worked in tech, came to my conversation classes to practice English. She was objectively successful, good job, nice apartment, but she was miserable. She'd compare herself to everyone.
What was the turning point for her? What actually shifted?
One day she showed up to class and she looked different. Lighter, somehow. I asked her what changed and she said she deleted Instagram for a month, just to see what would happen.
And what did happen?
She said the first week was awful. She felt like she was missing out on everyone's lives. But by week 3, something shifted. She stopped thinking about what everyone else was doing and started noticing what she actually wanted.
That's the key, Cheryl. When you remove the constant input of other people's curated lives, you finally have space to hear your own voice. You remember what you actually care about, not what you think you should care about.
Exactly. And she told me the craziest thing. She realized she didn't even want half the things she thought she wanted. She just wanted them because other people had them. That connects to another client you worked with, right?
It does. Let me tell you about Marcus, 35, worked in finance. He felt like he was falling behind because he hadn't made partner yet, even though he was doing well by any objective measure.
But how did you get him to change, Noah? Because just telling someone to stop comparing themselves doesn't work. What was the actual intervention?
I had him run a tiny experiment. For 1 week, every time he felt the "I'm falling behind" feeling, he had to write down 3 things he'd accomplished that day. Not big things, just evidence that he'd moved forward.
Oh, I love that. So he was retraining his brain to notice his own progress instead of just scanning for threats.
Exactly. And by the end of the week, he had this list of small wins, helped a colleague, finished a report, had a good conversation with his kid. None of it was Instagram worthy, but it was real.
And that's the thing. Real progress is boring. It's not a highlight reel. It's just showing up and doing the work day after day. I had a student who figured this out too, and her story still gets to me.
I feel for her already. Creative field plus social media is a brutal combination.
Her name was Priya. She was 27, a graphic designer, and she was drowning in comparison. She'd spend hours looking at other designers' work on Instagram, and every time she'd feel like her work wasn't good enough.
But why didn't she just stop looking? What kept pulling her back to that cycle?
She thought she was doing research. She told herself she was learning from other designers, staying current. But really, she was just feeding her own sense of inadequacy.
That's the collector's fallacy. She was consuming information as a substitute for creating. It felt productive, but it was actually avoidance.
Yes. And the breakthrough came when her mentor gave her a challenge. Create something every day for 30 days, but she wasn't allowed to look at anyone else's work. Just make things from her own brain.
And what happened?
The first week was rough. She felt like everything she made was terrible. But by week 3, she found her own style. She stopped trying to make work that looked like other people's and started making work that felt like hers.
That's the shift, Cheryl. She stopped measuring herself against an external standard and started building an internal one. And once you have that, comparison loses its power.
Exactly, and she told me later that she still looks at other designers' work sometimes, but it doesn't hurt anymore. She's not comparing, she's just appreciating. So what do we do with all of this, Noah? How do we actually help people get unstuck?
Let's talk about the body first, because your body knows you're in trouble before your conscious mind does. Chronic tension in your shoulders, shallow breathing, jaw clenching. These are early warning signs.
I used to get this tight feeling in my chest when I was teaching, especially Sunday nights. I thought it was just stress, but it was my body telling me I was running on empty.
Exactly. Your nervous system is trying to communicate with you, but we've been taught to ignore those signals and push through. That's a recipe for burnout.
So what should people actually do when they notice those signs, Noah?
First, just notice them without judgment. Don't make it another thing you're failing at. Just observe. Oh, my shoulders are up by my ears. Oh, I'm holding my breath. That awareness alone starts to shift things.
I like that. It's not about fixing it immediately. It's just about paying attention. But I want to push back on something, Noah. A lot of people think they'll rest properly when they have time. Like, I'll relax on vacation.
And vacation never comes. Or it comes and you spend it checking work email because you can't actually turn off.
Right, so the myth of the perfect moment to rest is actually keeping people trapped, isn't it?
Absolutely. Rest isn't something you earn after you've done enough. Rest is part of how you do enough. It's not a reward, it's a requirement.
Okay, but let's get specific. What's the difference between actual rest and what most people do, which is just collapse in front of a screen?
Great question. Passive rest is scrolling your phone, watching TV, anything that requires zero effort. It feels like rest, but it doesn't actually restore you. Active rest is different. Walking, stretching, talking to a friend, anything that engages you without depleting you.
So passive rest is like junk food for your nervous system. It fills the time, but it doesn't nourish you.
Perfect metaphor, Cheryl. And here's the key. You need both. But if all your rest is passive, you're never actually recovering.
Okay, but Noah, what does real rest look like on a Tuesday when you're exhausted and you have work tomorrow and you can't just take a week off to find yourself?
Micro experiments. The smallest possible action that breaks the pattern. 5 minutes of stretching. 1 phone call to someone who makes you laugh. 10 minutes outside without your phone.
So we're not talking about overhauling your entire life. We're talking about tiny shifts that your nervous system can actually handle.
Exactly. Because the opposite of falling behind isn't racing ahead. It's finding a sustainable pace. And that starts with experiments small enough that you can't fail.
All right, let's get practical, Noah. I want 5 things someone can actually try this week. Not someday, not when life calms down, this week.
First, do a cognitive load audit. Take 10 minutes tonight and write down every open loop in your brain, every unfinished task, every decision you're avoiding, every mental tab you have open. Just get it out of your head and onto paper.
I love this, because half the time we don't even realize how much we're carrying. Seeing it written down makes it manageable.
Second, Schedule nothing time. Put it in your calendar like a meeting. 30 minutes where you're not productive, not optimizing, not improving yourself. Just existing.
And if someone asks you to do something during that time, you can honestly say, sorry, I have something scheduled, because you do. You have an appointment with yourself.
Third, complete one microcycle. Pick the smallest possible task you've been avoiding and finish it. Reply to that one email. Wash those 3 dishes. Put away those clothes. Give your brain the satisfaction of closure.
Because of the Zeigarnik effect, right? Our brains hold on to incomplete tasks, so finishing even one tiny thing frees up mental space.
Fourth, name the specific type of tired you are. Are you physically tired, mentally tired, emotionally tired, socially tired? Different types of tired need different types of rest.
This is huge, Noah, because a lot of people try to fix emotional exhaustion with a nap, and then they wonder why they still feel terrible.
Fifth, set one boundary this week. One thing you say no to, one conversation you exit early, one obligation you decline. Practice protecting your energy like it's a limited resource, because it is.
And notice how it feels to do that. You might feel guilty at first, but pay attention to the space it creates.
The people you think are ahead of you are also looking at someone else and feeling behind. Everyone's running a race that doesn't exist.
So stop measuring your worth by someone else's highlight reel. Your progress is real even if nobody sees it. Your pace is valid even if it's slower than you hoped.
If this conversation resonated with you, send it to someone who needs to hear it today.
And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got something really good lined up.
I'm Noah.
And I'm Cheryl. See you on the bridge.